Movies, TV, sports, flicks. Movies, TV, sports, flicks. Movies, TV, sports, flicks.
The Captain Talk Flicks.
Movies, TV, sports, flicks. Movies, TV, sports, flicks. Movies, TV, sports, flicks.
The Captain Talk Flicks.
Welcome to the Captain Talks Flicks podcast. I'm your host, the Captain Cortez, aka Mr. Love, and this is where we talk flicks. I welcome the podcast where me, the Captain, talks about movies, TV, sports, flicks, anything you can see on a tube or screen. I like to get in here and give my unique perspective, because after 46 years of being on planet Earth, I've developed a unique perspective about these movies, TV, sports, and flicks. I'd like to get in here and tell you about it, because just maybe you care. And according to the stats, looks like you do care. I want to give a big shout out to Iraq. Got some plays over in Iraq this past week. Gracias, gratitude, todo rabah. In Iraq, I know a lady from over there. She is so nice. She's a very nice lady. I talk to her every now and then. She's so cool. Very cool lady. So I know you guys in Iraq are so cool. Because this lady's cool. I'm sure you're all cool. So I appreciate you listening. Gracias, gratitude. And just FYI, back then was School Bay Radio DJ, but never got a job. I think I never got a job because I didn't have the discipline. If I just would have had discipline, that would have enabled me to become a radio DJ. But I didn't. And it allowed me to become the greatest podcaster in the Matrix. Some to debate might be true, might not be true, but I said it on the internet. So it's gotta be true, right? Because everything on the internet is facts, not facts, true, false, propaganda, fake news, the Matrix, scooters, skateboards, unicycles, circus, clowns, elephants, peanuts. I don't know. I didn't make the internet. Ask the people that made the internet. So when you're online, just beware, just watch out. Anyways, I could ramble all day, but I won't. Let's get right into the podcast. But first, a word from our sponsor. Ladies and gentlemen, do you have a brain? Chances are, if you're a human being, most likely you have a brain. I'm pretty sure you can't be alive without having a brain. Maybe that's not true, but I'm pretty sure that's true. So since you're alive and you have a brain, right? We all have a brain. I'm a strong believer in taking our brains and training it. You know the way you train your body to get muscles? Well, I feel we should do the same thing with the brain. Train our brain daily. That's what I feel. Get those muscles strong, but make that brain smarter, stronger, faster. Can calculate, think better, right? I'm a big proponent of that. So if you're like me and you think you should train your brain daily, we got something over the Existing Fiction Zazzle store that you might be interested in. Over at the Existing Fiction Zazzle store, we have the Train This Daily collection. There's a shirt, there's a notebook, there's a mug. And the design on these items is a brain, a picture of a brain, and it says Train This Daily underneath. I actually own a coffee mug. So when I drink coffee out that mug, it reminds me to train my brain daily. So I write in a journal, I write rhymes, I study languages, I read, because I'm all about training the brain daily. So if you want a reminder of that, check the Train This Daily collection over the Existing Fictions as a store and train your brain daily. So do that. I'll put the link below. Check it out. Now let's get on the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, the Captain is back again. Yeah, this week I went hard. This week I pushed the boundaries of my existence. I did all types of stuff I wouldn't have done in the past, right? I just said, how much can I do? What can I do? How far can I go? How hard can I go? Right? This is what this podcast is about. It's like we're here at this particular situation. We're at this level. We're at this space. We're at this place. Let's go a little further. Let's go a little harder. Let's go a little bit more. Let's accomplish a little bit more. Let's do a little bit more. You know, if you want a different life, you got to do different stuff. You have to think differently, act differently, move differently, be different. Because if you keep being the same, you can have the same life. And if you want to get a different life, do different stuff. And this week I took steps to achieve that. Because this podcast is about expanding minds. So if you've been coming here, you know what we're about. We're about expanding minds. We're about growing and expanding. So anyways, thanks for joining me. Appreciate it. God sees gratitude. Let me get right into what I want to talk about this week. This week, I'm going to talk about my favorite franchise in the universe. And if you've been here before, you know exactly what I'm going to say. In fact, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you've not been here before, it's your first time, let me tell you what my favorite franchise in the universe is. It is the one and only Star Trek. You know Star Trek? Beam me up, Scotty. Live long and prosper. You know what I'm talking about? I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. James T. Kirk, Spock. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to talk about Star Trek Prodigy this week. But before I get into that, let me just say a couple things. First of all, there will be spoilers. Secondly, I do own some shares in the parent company of Star Trek. I want to be clear and transparent to make you aware I'm going to talk about Star Trek, and I do own some shares in the parent company. I love Star Trek so much that I bought some shares. That's how much I love it. So I just want to make you aware of that. Be clear, just because I think it's the right thing to do. So now that I've told you that, let me get into the good stuff. Let me get into the podcast. So ladies and gentlemen, this week on Star Trek Prodigy, the crew of Prodigy answered a distress call. As there was a distress call, so we got to answer it. It's the right thing to do. We got to help these people out. Right? So they do that. They answer a distress call. They go down to this planet. And on this planet, they find a bunch of people, beings, that are modeling their life after the TOS era Star Trek crews, ways of being, outfits, right? So this society on this planet models their life after James T. Kirk and crew, the Enterprise crew. Turns out that a shuttle from the Enterprise TOS era, James T. Kirk, Spock, the one from the 1960s, the shuttlecraft from Enterprise crash landed on there. And this guy from Kirk's Enterprise crash landed on this planet. And when he was on there, he told him all about Starfleet, told him the stories, showed him the videos, told him how great it was, explained all these things to him. And this society modeled themselves after that because they loved it so much, right? Very dope episode. A lot of Easter eggs as usual. But what I want to do is I want to dig a little deeper into an aspect of the show, which I normally do on these Star Trek podcasts. So let me go dig a little deep. We're going deep like a Navy SEAL. So it's interesting that this shuttlecraft had crash landed onto this planet from Kirk's Enterprise. It's interesting how the society just heard those stories about Starfleet and took them on as their own and embraced them and admired them and lived by them. What I want to talk about is this shows just how powerful stories are. Stories are powerful, as seen in this episode. It just happened in this episode. He crashed on the planet, told stories, and they embraced that culture, stories, fully, right? So if we look at our world, where we live, on planet Earth, reality, do you recognize how powerful stories are? When you hear stories from other human beings, when you see stories in shows and movies, when you hear stories in songs, do you grasp and understand how powerful that is? Think of some of the words you say. Think of some of the products you buy. Think of some of the stuff that you do. A lot of it probably is influenced from stories you've heard from other beings, other people, other cultures, TV, shows, music, individuals, well, whoever, your mom, dad. Like, this is how powerful stories are. It was shown in Star Trek Prodigy, the power of stories. So if we know how powerful stories are, if you're aware of the powerfulness of story, what stories are you listening to? What stories are you watching? What stories are you reading? What stories are you feeding your brain? So in Star Trek Prodigy, I feel they took on good stories. It's my opinion that the Starfleet way is good. Like, if I took on the Starfleet ideals and took those stories on and practiced them, I think it's a good way to go. But not all stories are good. Not all stories are benevolent. Not all stories are going to level you up. So I say this on the podcast all the time. What are you feeding your brain? What stories are you latching onto? What stories are you giving your attention? What stories are creating your life? Are you aware of this? Are you paying attention? What books are you reading? What TV shows are you watching? What songs are you listening to? What newspaper do you read? Who's hanging around you? Who is in your circle? What are they telling you? Right? You have to be aware of all this. Because as shown in Star Trek Prodigy, these stories have power. Maybe you're not aware of it. Maybe you are. I don't know. I'll be honest. I wasn't aware back in the day. But now I'm very aware. So because of that awareness, I am very particular about what stories are coming into my brain. What stories are going into my eyeballs? What stories are in the ears? Star Trek Prodigy just showed it to you right there. It's like, look at the power of stories. We're showing you how powerful stories are. Now that you're aware of this, what are you going to do about it? Star Trek is always teaching if you're looking for the teachings. Every episode you watch of Star Trek, doesn't matter what series, what episode, if you're looking for teachings and lessons in Star Trek, it's there. It's all over the place. There's so many lessons in Star Trek. And this week is, hey bro, stories are powerful. What stories are you telling yourself? What stories are you latching on to? What stories are you paying attention to? Be aware of this. And if a story is not leveling you up or making your life better, get rid of it. Maybe not, I don't know. But just be aware of the power of stories if you're not already aware of that. And that stories move minds. Stories shape reality. Stories are powerful, right? So yeah, that's what I got out of Star Trek Prodigy this week. The power of stories. Which I've already knew about, but just reiterating the power of it. So, ladies and gentlemen, go watch Star Trek Prodigy, because it's dope. It's dropping lessons. And this is a kid's show, but there's lessons upon lessons of layers in these shows if you search for it. If you search these shows of Star Trek, you will find many, many lessons to be seen. It's got to look, observe, look deeply. And when I look deeply into Star Trek Prodigy, this is what I saw. This is the lesson I got of Star Trek Prodigy. In addition, I got to be a kid for a half hour, which is cool too, have some fun and laugh. But also, got to peer deep and get some lessons. And remind myself the power of stories. And make sure that I'm tuning into the stories that are going to help me grow as an individual and help me have a better life. So, ladies and gentlemen, watch Star Trek Prodigy. And also, be aware of the stories you're taking in. And also be open to change and adjust if necessary. So thanks for listening. That's all I want to talk about. Gracias, gratitude. And until next time, we'll see you. Believe. Until next time, it's Captain Peace.
The Captain Talks Flicks.